I thought in this video I would bring out another one of my shadows that is linked with my social anxiety disorder. And I also know, obviously, this is very likely, well, I know this is what a lot of my students have who are suffering with social anxiety disorder, depression, also suffering through their life, through not being able to be themselves and do the things that they want to do in their life. Now, for me, a huge part of my suffering over the years of overcoming this and improving my confidence was my paranoia and my inability to read social cues, and I would take things the wrong way. My dad also had this fear as well, which he passed on to me, and this is really where a lot of his abusive behaviour came from onto me, where he would completely take things out of context. So if I just looked at him like I'm looking now, I'm in a completely relaxed mood, he would start getting angry and swearing and saying, "Why are you staring at me like that for?" Or if he was talking in a conversation, just, you know, small talk, whatever, about sports, and he said someone achieved something in boxing, and I said, "No, that boxer didn't fight that boxer, he fought this boxer." And what I was saying was factual, it was right and he was wrong. Instead of just saying, "Oh yeah, actually I was wrong, you're right," he would fly off, lose his temper. So I picked up a lot of these behaviours, and of course these behaviours are not conscious behaviours, they're not an authentic self. Now of course, if someone, sorry my jacket's dropping, if someone is outrightly rude to you, then you've got every right to defend yourself and to put the person in their place. But it's very different when someone is not being rude to you and you're paranoid and you're letting your irrational thoughts take over. And I had this for many years myself, and again, it's not comfortable to admit. This is why a lot of, at the time, friends were frightened of me. Deep down, they were quite scared of me, and I always got into arguments with people because when I'd meet new people, I would always be on the defensive because of the paranoia. And you'd know yourself, if you're watching this video and you're going through social anxiety, and of course, if you've been abused like I was growing up by a parent, you're always, well, for many years, if you don't work on this, you're always going to be in a mindset of being worried that you're going to be abused again. Like the mind, the inner child, the unconscious fears are going to play out in your behaviours, and as I said in my last video, it's going to be a projection of your insecurities onto other people. So it's going to look like everyone is trying to persecute you. But I realised when I overcome my social anxiety and when I actually changed identities or became my true self during this kind of long period, it was hard to admit it, because as I said before, there's always that feeling when you've got social anxiety, you can't help it. There's always the feeling that people are being nasty to me, people are trying to trick me, they're trying to get one up on me, they are just trying to make life difficult for me. And when you're trying to have a conversation with a person, it can sometimes feel that they're trying to dictate the conversation, interrupt you, force things on you. Even people's facial expressions used to frighten me because I was frightened of my dad's facial expression. So it causes a lot of discomfort and distrust around talking to human beings. So what really helped me is a spiritual practice, and I've already talked about this on my other videos, but if the first time you come to my video, was just self-control. So if I was talking to someone in a conversation and I felt like they were trying to disrespect me or trying to be condescending or rude, I would, my old self would just lose my temper and fly off the handle and either hit the person or start swearing and shouting, and then it would get into an argument, and the person would either be really shocked, they'd say I wasn't being rude to you. So I made a lot of mistakes in my earlier identity, but when I started to change, become more congruent, more honest, I started to feel the feelings coming up, but I was able to catch the feeling and control myself and get into my head and stop that story, that inner voice from saying, "Oh, this person's trying to, be disrespectful." Because the reality is that people are not bad. Like, everyone is not bad. There's good and bad in everyone. And because I experienced that growing up with my dad for many years, I didn't realise it on a conscious level. I kept projecting insecurity and my personality was very dysfunctional, which is why I'd get into heated arguments with people. And I just didn't like social confrontation because how it made me feel. It made me violent because it made me uncomfortable, it unnerved me, and I was frightened. I was frightened the person's going to attack me. I was like preparing for a fight all the time. It was completely irrational. It's very much like if you've seen Bruce Lee's life story, Dragon, where he's training. He really said this in one of his books. He's preparing for a fight that's never going to happen. And the real demons in the film, there is a metaphor that he fights that big kind of demon thing, and he gets behind it, the nunchucks, and he strangles it and kills it. But that was actually a metaphor for Bruce Lee facing his own insecurities. That was just the projection in the film of his inner voices. So it didn't really exist, that monster in the film, but it was just more of a manifestation of his inner demons. And that's what happened with me with my social anxiety. Like, yes, it was real what my dad did, but after that, of course, it left me quite damaged after. My own inner demons and voices were projected out onto every single person, and then I realised, obviously, even intellectually, it can't be every single human being in the world that is bad and wants to try and abuse me. And I realised later on that probably 90% of people I interact with were very nice, friendly, just talking to me and just being genuine. Whereas maybe the 10% of people that bullied me in my life and were outrightly rude, that's just the law of averages. That's happened to everyone in the grand scheme of life, living and meeting different people. But I totally know how you feel. I really understand that, especially at the earlier stages, and even when I was coming towards the end of overcoming this and healing, like sometimes certain personalities, certain conversations could bring stuff up in me. And sometimes even now it can happen with a certain personality. People don't have the right energy because I'm very calm, present. So to some extent it never ends, in the sense that there's always room for growth. But I'm saying if you're at the stages where you're frightened of people and you're not enjoying social interaction, just bear in mind that, because I've worked with so many students and they've said, I was at the gym speaking to someone, I think this guy was trying to bully me, and when I hear how the conversation went, I can hear that it wasn't true. It was just a person being paranoid. But I understand, because I was the same. I used to feel like that with people, and it played out in a lot of my relationships. It ruined a lot of my early relationships with women, where I just would be very reactive. If I said, and this is because of my insecurity, it all traces back to childhood with the relationship with my dad. If I said to my girlfriend, I like this about spirituality and I think this is the way the world works. Let's say, for example, I said, I think there is a God, I think there is a collective consciousness, and she said, no, I just don't believe that, there's no evidence to support that. Instead of just saying, okay, fair enough, that's your belief, this is my belief, and then just moving on, I would be like, but what do you mean, how could you say that? Let's prove that. No, see, you can almost see my body language, and then, almost I become a bully. I don't mean to be a bully, and I'm not conscious of it. It's only when I became spiritually awake, I was able to look back at my behaviours and see, well, this is why I'm behaving like this. This is why I'm getting triggered. And not to excuse myself from it or yourself, but to some extent it's not your fault that you're reacting like that or feeling that because of what's happened to you when you're a child and the abuse that's been put on you. Anyone who gets abused is going to be sensitive and is going to feel threatened and going to feel vulnerable. But it is your responsibility to start working on it, because obviously, I've said this before, and can be the difficult thing with social phobia. When you're going in to interact with people who do not have social anxiety, they don't know you've got it for a start. You think that everyone can see it. Most times I realise people can't see it because they're not thinking when they're going to go to an event, I'm going to meet people who've got social anxiety. They're just, whatever, they're in their own world. So you're suffering on the inside, they don't know you have it. And you kind of can fall into the mentality of expecting people to be more gentle and nice with you because of what you're going through, but most people don't know what you're going through, which is why I've said before, if you're in situations and it really gets intense, it's best to call it out and explain to people. At least that way they know why you're stressed and it's not personal with them. Otherwise, if you don't communicate, you can find yourself getting into arguments and even getting into fights, which used to happen to me years ago. It was the same in school. If someone gave me a dirty look, instead of just looked at me, I would interpret it, that is a threat, they want to get violent with me. Everything was like people trying to threaten me, and it just came from my insecurity, and it was a shadow. And I've still got that shadow. That shadow is definitely still in my body. That is one of the sub-personalities that I've got very, very good at watching and keeping an eye on him and not letting him out, because if I let him out, there will be chaos, and I don't want to. Well, I don't want to bring harm on anyone. I don't want to bring harm on myself, which is why I don't. I've got very good self-control now. So I'm just basically saying, if someone is outright rude to you, yes, of course you stick up for yourself, and you've got the social skills to do that. But I'm also saying, be careful with what is actually real and what is not real, what is created by your own insecurity. And when people are, you know, I remember, I'll tell you a quick story, right? This is interesting, this is relevant for this video before I end off. About 10 years ago, I was with a friend that I'd known for a long time, and he had a friend that I didn't like for whatever reason. I didn't know the person that well, but I'd met him once, and I didn't like him. I just didn't have a good impression of him. This is years back, and it was interesting how I got into a situation where I was with my friend, and the other friend, basically I had a friend, right, not to confuse you, he had a friend that I didn't like, based on one impression that I had of him. One day I was with a friend that I did like, and we bumped into the friend that he liked but I didn't like. And he started asking me a lot of questions and asking me where I lived and what, and I could feel the feelings coming up. And I didn't know back then, I didn't know I had social anxiety. I didn't know it on a conscious level. I didn't know like, oh, this is social anxiety and this is the reason I'm reacting. I knew deep down I was kind of uncomfortable with people. And he was asking me stuff, and I flipped. I lost my temper. I didn't hit him, and he laughed, but he laughed in a way to sort of say, whoa, calm down, I didn't mean it like that. And my friend had to step in and say, no, he doesn't mean it. And it's interesting, after that incident, I built a friendship with that person for 10 years, and I loved the guy, I really liked him. So looking back, it was my paranoia, it was my fear of him trying to dominate me, which was again playing out what my dad did to me. And I misinterpreted friendliness for someone to try and well, I keep stuttering lately, it's annoying. I misinterpreted someone being friendly to me and genuinely trying to ask me questions, as opposed to someone trying to take advantage of me. He wasn't trying to take advantage, and as I grew friendship with him, he's a very nice human being. So, as I said to you, in my last, I don't know what I said in one of my last videos, I'm learning a ton of new experience now based on a lot of my mistakes in the past. That's how I'm able to do a lot of the teaching that I'm doing, and that's why lately so much fresh content is coming out, because the more I grow, especially since I've overcome social anxiety and got a lot more confident with people, it's almost like now, if this makes sense, my consciousness, I'm trying to get the words right, I'm sure you understand me, I'm getting more clarity on how to help other people overcome their social anxiety based on my story, my mistakes, the things I did right, and the kind of different stages I was at. And I used to be incredibly paranoid. I'm sure you're going through the same. Most of you that I work with tell me this, and I know that based on having it myself. And that is one of the unfortunate parts of social anxiety is the mind. Our mind's our biggest enemy, as it can be our best friend. It can play tricks on you. So, you know, guys, again, a lot of the work I do as well is confidence with helping guys speak, not just confident people, but women. So for example, I get a lot of emails and guys will say, I went on a date with this girl, it went really well, but then I messaged her, she sent me this message, what does this mean? And all the girl has said is, I'll have to think about meeting you next time because I'm a little bit busy at the moment, or something like that. And the guy will assume it's the worst thing possible, that the girl is all of a sudden betrayed him, turned him down. And I understand, because I used to be like that as well with women texting me. And he's completely blown a message out of proportion based on a negative assumption that that girl is out to get him and reject him. And sometimes that's the case, the girl is turning you down, this life happens and men turn women down, but most of the time, again, it's tracing back to an insecurity that you've taken on or developed based on a childhood trauma. As Gabor Mate says, all human suffering, and I 100% agree with him based on my own journey in life and being a teacher myself, all of our insecurities and deep struggles always come from a childhood trauma. And that trauma tends to get played out in our relationships and behaviours, which is why it's so important for us to heal and to become conscious of who we are, so we can identify, of course, who we're not, and to continue with this practice. And for me, especially being an ex-violent man, a very insecure man, who's very sensitive, it's very important that my own inner consciousness protects me from myself. This is what actually Jeff said to me. I spoke to Jeff before, and he said, you know, who's the person that you've got to protect yourself against amongst everyone? And I said, the self. He said, yeah, yourself. That's why it's important to meditate, work on yourself, self-love. Because seriously, I thought about this the other day. If we followed up on every single interpretation that was negative, we'd all be in prison, we'd all be fighting every minute. Because I thought about this today when I was just going about in London. The amount of people that barged me, got in my way, huffed. A few people gave me funny looks, but that could just be my paranoid mind, and I just ignored it and just continued, didn't let it spoil my day. I had a great day. But my old self would have, I would have interpreted every single situation as a threat, and there would have been a need for me to defend and react. And it makes sense to me now. I've been doing this video, I'm getting more clarity sharing these stories with you, why I got into so many fights years ago when it could have been avoided by just having more self-security and not following into the negative story, and being more patient with people. That's something I've really worked on myself, because everyone's at different stages. Sometimes someone's talking to you, they're nervous. We're, as species, as human beings, we're all kind of socially nervous in a sense when we meet new people. We're always trying to get to know someone. Can be very daunting, can equally be exciting. So I'm saying, don't make it harder on yourself. If you've got social anxiety, there's already enough paranoia going on. Cut the paranoia down by becoming more conscious, more self-aware, and just being a bit more patient and not interpreting everything that someone says to you as a negative. See it as a positive. Change the thing around. I'll leave you one last story and then we'll end the video to make it positive, and this is true. There's a shop just up the road in Paddington. It was a couple of months ago. I bought a bag for my laptop. I don't know, it's just this bag here. Right, this is quite a cheap bag. I bought a few of them. One of them broke. All right, I wasn't in a bad mood, but I was a bit frustrated because I needed to get a bag for my laptop and I wanted to go and do some work in central London. So I rushed to the shop and the strap broke, and I had the money to buy a new one. I think it was only 10 or 12 quid, but I said to the guy, I bought this bag from your shop and I don't mind if I have to buy a new one. Is there any chance you can fix it? The zips broke. And the guy was a bit abrupt and he said, no, you didn't get the bag from the shop. And I felt the pain body come straight up. I felt anger because he lied. But then I realised that he wasn't even conscious of what he was saying. Like in that moment when he said that was just, he was on autopilot because he works in the shop all day. So it wasn't true what he said. I bought the bag from the shop. I knew I bought the bag from the shop because there's only 2 shops and they sell similar stuff, and I remembered. And I said, well, no, I bought the bag from here. Because I said, look, the bags were over on the rack. And he said, no, you didn't buy it. I said, no, you're not listening. I bought the bag from your shop. I said, and you served me, I remember you. He said, I don't remember you. I said, well, it doesn't matter if you don't remember me. I remember you. And I was kind of building up and my voice was changing and he could feel, and he was building up, and I catched it quickly because that's my old self come out. I thought, I'm not going to get into a fight at 32 years of age over a bag because someone is being rude or lacking social skills. Because again, this can be my projection. Even though he's rude and he was being rude, if I continued interpreting that, it doesn't take too much. I don't want to sound threatening, I feel very rude, but it doesn't take too much for me in my sick, paranoid, egoic mind to want to knock him over the counter and take the bag from the shop. I'm joking. Just joking. But my old self was like that. I had no self-control. I thought people were trying to intimidate me and take the mick out of me. So I caught it, I was calm, I breathed, and I said, look, I'm going to buy the bag. I got the money. I don't mind. I like your shop. But I did buy the bag from your shop, and I calmed down, and then 2 guys came up. Well, there's 3 guys here. We've got a scene for Bruce Lee, and I know how to use these. And my mind started going into some kind of fantasy. Bah, 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 bah. I'm just joking, no violence. So I thought, I'm just going to be calm, present. And I lined myself back nice and calm. And within 2-3 minutes, and I wasn't people pleasing, I was myself, They were all laughing, and the guy apologised to me, and I said, you know what, I'm going to buy a bag again. And then he finally admitted, yeah, I remember now, you did buy the bag in the shop. So, and you know, and he lied, he told a lie. Okay, it's not the biggest crime in the world, I've lied before myself. And he might have been stressed. Guess what? I bought a new bag again, I accepted it, no problem. The next time I came to the shop, he was so nice. Hey man, how have you been? Really genuine, nice to me. And I thought, wow, that's a massive result for me. That, you know, because that makes me proud to see where I was. So I work with a lot of guys that have got, just like me, got bad tempers because they got bullied. So within this video, I'm not saying that you let people walk all over you. I'm not saying when someone is outrightly rude, you just put up with it and you use spiritual practice. There is a time and place. Sometimes I can be really firm, really firm. It's not very often, but once, and I don't want to scare people, but there was a student I was working with, and he was really rude. And there's always going to be one person, isn't there? But again, it wasn't conscious. He said something that wasn't true, and in that moment, he was really rude, and we was getting on really well. And I was quite firm with him. I just said, listen, I said, what you're saying isn't true, and it's just a load of nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. I was quite sharp and firm. But I wasn't aggressive, I wasn't violent, and you know, he was shocked, and then he apologised, said that's fine, and we continued and got on really well. So I'm not perfect, we'll make mistakes, and what I'm saying is if someone is outrightly rude, you've got a right to be firm and put them in their place. But don't be violent, don't lose your temper, don't hit people, because I did that in the past, it doesn't get you anywhere. And use all these advantages as spiritual practice. So, you know, and this is one of the things actually that I've seen Floyd do a lot when I met Floyd, among obviously good skills of women. He was very good at diffusing violent situations for people. I was not good at it, now I'm really good at it. So use all the opportunities when your mind starts becoming paranoid and say, what's this person trying to say? Calm down, relax, and speak calmly. Don't people please. You can still get your point across, but be calm. So as I said, that situation in the shop, it's like turning an enemy into a friend. So the guys are always nice, every time I go in the shop they're polite, and as I said, that was a day where he was tired, he was busy, I asked for a refund, he's on autopilot, and he responded with, we don't sell this bag. So if I continue on that energy, on that frequency, it's going to be mayhem, and I'm probably going to get arrested, and then I won't be making YouTube videos and teaching anymore. So sensitivity to what you interpret a positive reaction or negative one, you have to be careful of it. And especially delicate for people who have been traumatized with social anxiety. I remember, and it happens sometimes, and I didn't take it, but I remember a few situations, I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but there's been situations where I've interacted with men, and they're lovely guys, but they're very insecure, and I'm only saying this because I'm an ex-insecure man, and sometimes I'm a bit insecure as well, as we all are. And I've been in situations where younger guys, and this is when I taught a lot of the day game, the pickup, and a lot of the young guys who quite looked up to me at that time, you know, because they thought it was great seeing me picking up women, but they'd be really rude to me when they met me, but I didn't know they were doing that. And I wasn't going to be a bully and lose my temper, so I just was aware of it, and I learned how to use social skills and diffuse that situation, because I thought, oh, he's only young. You know, I'm 30 years of age, or 29, and he's 21, 19. He's a kid, he's still maturing. I was like him when I was young, and I was rude to older people. He's not conscious of what he's doing. So I hope you're understanding what I'm getting across here, and it will grow you spiritually, and it will be one of the things, again, amongst many others, that will really get you over your social anxiety disorder, because it is so much paranoia. And I think paranoia is a difficult thing to overcome. There's no secret pill, but it is a gradual process. And it's really you getting these insecurities out. So it's a tricky balance, but it's one that you can attain through practice. I hope I explained that right. Some of these videos lately have been quite difficult to explain because I'm explaining practical concepts and spiritual. These are like real life situations that I'm talking on a video. I've done so many demonstrations now on YouTube of talking to people. You can probably go back and see some of my older stuff and see situations where I come unstuck, I get awkward, or it's happened quite a lot of time on YouTube videos. I've gone up to someone on the street and they've been a bit rude or abrupt, and I've not even fazed me. So talking to people will help you to build that sort of social calibration, emotional control. I hope that helps. All right, bye.